me doing what I've been doing. Let me doing my thing. The world spins round to the right, they say. I'll be spinning the other way. Doing what I can, doing what I know. The world's my stage and I'm the show. It is my destiny. It is the truth I seek. In this world I find a way to cross the line. No possibilities for originality. Don't be left behind. Go ahead and cross the line. They say yes, I say no. Telling me to stay, I'm gonna go. We gotta be who we gotta be. I gotta be who I gotta be. It is my destiny. It is the truth I seek. In this world I find a way to cross the line. No possibilities for originality.
Hey now,
Don't be left behind.
how's it going,
Go ahead
everybody?
and cross the line.
Although that does go really fucking hard. Hey now, it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert. And as always, going solo on that ass, but it's still the same. We're talking TNA wrestling, and we are back from the Great American Southeast, and we are live on a Friday night at 9:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And why am I going live at 9? Well, as you can tell, I am decked out in my 4-1, my winning San Francisco 49ers gear, representing Mac Jones. I got my very authentic, very real Mac Jones jersey on. I'm a Mac Jones truther now. I typically would go on a Thursday night, and I would do it on Patreon. But on Patreon, I've done 2 podcasts already this week on Patreon. So I decided, you know what, since I was fairly a little extra active this week, plus I'm on a weird night, it's a whole thing. I typically will record on a Thursday night, and then I'll give the show away for free on Saturday morning at some point. But since it's like Friday night and I've gone on Patreon a couple times this week, I decided, you know what, we'll just go ahead and drop it. But next week there will be this show will be behind a paywall, but I will clip. Obviously, I'll do all the clips because we're going to do our full Bound for Glory preview show. We'll recap the go home show of Impact, and then we'll talk about whatever news is breaking during the week. But I might actually be doing a NXT Showdown post show. Still to be determined. If it'll be live on Tuesday, I'm not really sure, but me and Cousin Joe are talking about it, and we're gonna work that deal out. I got some folks in the chat. If you're in the chat, if you're watching live, join the chat, drop some comments, drop a like, a subscribe, share the show with your friends, let everybody know that you're watching. That helps trick the algorithm into thinking that I'm important. We all know that I'm not. Well, most people know that I'm not. Although there's been a couple of people, and I'll get to that. There's been a couple of people out there that think that I might have information that I don't actually have. So we're gonna have to correct the record on some stuff. My name got thrown around in a fairly popular blog, I would say, and there are a couple of media guys jumped me on Twitter yesterday, and I was like, "What did I do?" So we'll get into some of that. Io says that this should be the new TNA theme. Yeah, that would be cool. I made it, but they can have it. I just used this software called Suno. Yeah, software called Suno, and I just did make me a metalcore version of Cross the Line. But I made that like a year ago, so I've had that ready. The reason why I played that at the top of the show just because I need to buy myself a couple more minutes because I was getting some notes together. Because there's been actually a lot of news that has dropped and since I last talked to you guys. Of course, if you're on Patreon, you already know some of the information that I'm about to talk about. But we're live on a Friday night. We're live on YouTube. I'm sure most of you wrestling fans are watching SmackDown. I don't understand why, but some of you guys like SmackDown. You can watch it on YouTube the next day in like 20 minutes and get the whole thing, by the way. But some people like SmackDown. I'm not hating you for it. It's not my cup of tea. But why would I ever decide to go head to head with SmackDown? Well, it's more of a timing thing. So like I said, last night up really late, and then I had to get up this morning at 5 a.m. so that way I can be out the door a little after 6 to drive an hour into work. And then I had to work in a cubicle all day. Was able to get my work done earlier, so I bailed home. And then I'm 42 now, so I decided, well, hey, I'm going to take a nap when I get home. But family didn't allow that to happen. So, I got little ones, so that doesn't always work out the way you would want it to, or the way that I would have hoped, but that would have been cool. So I'm pretty tired. I'm a little hopped up on caffeine, but I'm going to crash out right around that 2200 mark. So, or 10 p.m. for you scum civilian. Yeah, lots of news to get into. Let's go ahead and let's talk about it. Let's talk about some news. We're going to get the TV deal stuff right out of the way. We're going to talk about that right off the bat, because I am getting pretty close to sick of it. but I will say the TV deal talk does do my best YouTube numbers. So when I clip it, that's typically what does the best for me. Carlos Silva is doing his media rounds, promoting Bound for Glory. And he comes across as a guy that's super honest. Now, he might not be honest, but in the interviews, he did one with a Battle on Air, the Battleground podcast on, I think it's an iHeartRadio deal. A lot of wrestling people do that show. I've never actually listened to it, but I know that guy gets like good guests because he's part of the iHeartRadio network. And I'm not dogging the guy, like good for him. He's got a good radio voice, so that's cool. Softball questions, stuff like, so when you do that, you typically will get more bees with honey, right? Than you do with vinegar. And so like guys like that are going to get guys like Carlos. And so that's good. Kudos to him. But he did multiple interviews. The one that I actually listened to was the one that he did with the Battleground show. And I got a kind of a compilation of some of his quotes, but multiple interviews this week. TNA president Carlos Silva provided optimistic updates on a pending TV deal, stating the company is pretty close. I think I've heard that one before. To finalizing a major U.S. rights agreement set to launch in 2026. So let me stop right there. I was of the opinion, this was my theory, and I stated it as such. And I was basing my theory, my hypothesis, off of their schedule that I had believed at the time. And I was looking at the schedule, and they had nothing on the books between Bound for Glory and November 13th, which was slated for Orlando, Florida. We have now since learned that on November 13th, they're going to be live on Thursday night from Full Sail University. Then the next night will be Turning Point, and then the following night will be a round of tapings, which is kind of a little unique for them to do 3 days in a row, but it's Full Sail, right? So you can do that in Full Sail. There's not that many. You're not going to get that many people in Full Sail, and to do a live episode right before a Friday night TNA Plus special, that's unique. And then to follow that up with another round of tapings. But the good thing is that in that little venue, like they could do the live episode on Thursday night, and they could tape right after that live episode. They can just tape matches, and they don't even have to do like the in-ring interviews and all that stuff. They can hold some of that other stuff that they're building for the subsequent episodes after Turning Point. They can do that on Saturday, right? They can do some of the meat, right? Or if there's something that's not even connected to the Friday show, they can tape that on Thursday, and that way they're not, spoiling their own live TNA Plus special if they wanted to. So they could conceivably get a month of episodes in, which it looks like they're getting like 3 to 4 weeks in. I don't really have the math in front of me, but that's what it seems like. And I know you're in the chat. You're in the chat. So if you got the dates, I forgot to write down the dates for the El Paso shows in December, but they're doing another round in December. But so let's see, where was I? Okay, so finalizing a U.S. major rights agreement set to launch in 2026. So I thought that November 13th date would have been the perfect day to launch a brand new live TV show. They're in Full Sail University. It's time for they have a month between the pay-per-view and November 13th to kind of get their affairs in order as far as like production, things like that. But it looks like that's not going to be the case. Looks like it's going to be pushed back into 2026. When in 2026, I don't know. It could be any one of the days in 2026. There is no time frame in 2026 when that would start. Ideally, it would be January, but who knows? Nobody knows what it looks like. Okay. He says, I think every day it gets closer. I certainly hope it gets announced before the end of the year. So I think the target date that people are like the rumored target date would be Bound for Glory. That would make sense. But if they don't have the deal done, they can't make the announcement at that point, right? So it says here was the interesting part. Here's the thing that everybody's kind of keying in on. We have an interested partner, and we're working through potentially a deal for 2026. And described it as being on the 30-yard line, getting ready to score, emphasizing plans for more live programming while retaining some tape content. So there you go. So the important part of that was that they have an interested partner. So they've narrowed it down to a singular partner. Based on his quotes, right? They've narrowed it down to one partner, and it looks like that he said that partner is excited about them. They're excited about the partner. They're exchanging paperwork, and they're hoping that the deal gets signed pretty soon. To me, it sounds like it's like almost there, but I have been feeling that for a while, and so it's kind of like, I hate to, I don't want to betray you and the never-ending story, but so feel like we're getting caught up in the never-ending story. So December 5th, 6th, and 7th final resolution, and 2 taping nights. So there you go. So yeah, so December 5th from El Paso, Texas, at that awesome venue they ran earlier this year will be final resolution, and then they'll do 2 nights of tapings after that. So so it looks like November 3rd. So yeah, you're looking at like 3 weeks of shows that they'll have in the can. They'll probably actually, now that I think about it, they might skip Thanksgiving, but we'll see. But yeah, so it looks like that deal should be announced any day now. I don't think that I'm going to be sitting here talking about it again next week unless there's an actual update. But I feel like we're getting closer, and that an announcement is imminent. And what that announcement will be, nobody really knows. But like I said last week on this show, and I've been saying for a while, all signs will be pointing towards CW. It makes the most sense. They're on CW every week. This week, they were heavily featured, heavily advertised, and the rating wasn't good, but it was still significantly. It was like 100,000 more than what AEW is doing. And they're going up against playoff baseball, so they're going up against the Dodgers were playing at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and the Yankees were playing like right before that. So Yankees and Red Sox actually. So big games. Dodgers versus Reds. Dodgers with the clean sweep. So there you go. Yankees and Red Sox game 1. I think game 2 was last night. I think. No, game 2 was Wednesday. So up against Dynamite. Dynamite did like 468, which is horrible. So, man, they're having a rough go over in AEW. But NXT was not a good rating either, by the way. That one was pretty far down. And I think everybody's gonna be blaming baseball, which makes sense. But they're for the most part doing decent numbers for CW, right? And they're being heavily featured on NXT. All of the talent is all over those shows. They're slowly introducing the TNA talent all over the shows, and that way, whenever TNA has its own show, the CW audience and the NXT audience, they're not having to like learn who these people are all over. You know what I mean? Like they've already been introduced to them, and NXT has a casual audience. more hardcore than your mainstream like main roster audience, but like a lot of people just like over 50 are watching that show and they're like super casual people. Um, so I think that's smart. But is that deal locked in? Well, of course not. We don't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is. I'm speculating, I'm guessing, I have no clue what it is. I do think that there is an interesting candidate out there that just emerged. I have not heard that they're in talks with this company, but it's a new station, actually an old station that's coming back. And I thought that they would be an interesting candidate, and that's NBC Sports Network. That was on for like NBC Sports Network was out there for a while. It went through a couple of different name changes, but whenever it was on previously, it was called NBC Sports Network. And NBC got rid of that channel back in 2021, but they're actually making a comeback because NBC Universal is breaking off like USA, Bravo, and those other channels, MSNBC, which is going to be like, that's getting a new name. And all those networks, those family of networks, they're going to be broken off into like Versant is what it's going to be called. And then you got your NBC over here, and they're going to be doing heavy sports stuff. And so they're bringing back the NBC Sports Network. They just struck a deal with YouTube TV for clearance on there. I thought I read an awful announcing that it looks like they got some kind of deal with DirecTV. And as they get closer to the launch date, I think we'll see more and more carriers start to pick that up because it looks like they might be bringing on MLB and NBA and Big Ten, and I think they got golf and NASCAR. So that actually might end up being a pretty big sports network. They might try to do a launch much like FS1. Then if it gets to FS1 level, then I think that could be a candidate for TNA. Not that it needs to be a big channel for TNA to be on there. I don't think that that's the case, but I'm saying that if it is a big one and then they get on there, that could be a big deal because they would be like first run original programming on a brand new hot station that everybody's going to want to check out. That could be a big deal, especially if they got these mainstream sports that are being a part of it. And when you're a brand new channel, you need hours and hours of programming that's cheap and easy to produce, and pro wrestling fits that mold. And pro wrestling has been on NBC Universal stations and USA Network like from the beginning of fucking cable. And so having TNA a part of that makes a ton of sense to me. Especially if it's NBC Universal, you could package that up with a Peacock deal. Now, again, I'm just talking out my ass. I don't know if anything like this is going to happen, but I've just been talking to other fans, and it's interesting speculation to say the least. My preference still remains the same, Paramount, but I don't think we're getting that. That has not even been rumored. That's just been me talking. So, but yeah, so that is the latest on the TNA TV deal. Not November 13th like we thought. It's earmarked for 2026, but I still believe that hopefully by Bound for Glory we get this announcement. I need this fucking announcement because I'm so sick of talking about it. I am so done with this story. Big new distribution deal. Gerard is far from sick of it. He thrives on it. This is his North Star, right? It's the TV deal, and it's Caleb Williams is like fingernail polish. Like that's what drives him to get up every day, I think. Well, and his family, of course. But yeah, Gerard. I gotta bust my friend's balls while I'm on the air. All right. So let's get to this. What is your opinion? This is from Impact 88. What is your opinion of who's on Team TNA versus Team NXT? Well, I have varying different opinions based on the match themselves. So for the men's match, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong. I do have the notes in here, but for some reason, some of the names are missing. I don't know what the hell. I was in a rush to get this done because I had like this window of time where like my son finally fell asleep, and I was like looking at the clock, and I was like, you know what, I can knock this out right now. I could get this podcast done right now. And my wife's upstairs putting my daughter down, so I'm like, okay, I got the downstairs to myself. I can knock out a podcast, so let's do it. But so for the men's elimination match, Team NXT is being captained by I believe Ricky Saints, right? Yeah, it's being captained by Ricky Saints. On that team is Ricky Saints, the TNA champion, Trick Williams, Javon Evans, and let's see who is. Oh, man, why did my note just end right there? Excuse me. It's Miles Bourne. Sorry, Miles Bourne. I just remembered it. So it is Ricky Saints or Ricky Starks, whatever you want to call him, Trick Williams, Javon Evans, and Miles Bourne versus a team captained by Mike Santana, Moose, Frankie the Future, Kazarian, and who was the other person on the team TNA? My notes just quit on me. I don't know why that happened. Let me see. I'm just gonna type it up. NXT Showdown Team TNA versus Team NXT. Okay. I'm just pulling it up right now. That way I don't look like a total goof. Like I already look like a goof. I don't need it to be worse. Oh, Matt Cardona. No, Matt Cardona is not in that match. Okay, the men's team is Mike Santana, Frankie Kazarian, Moose, and Leon Slater. Of course, it's Leon Slater. Javon Evans. Okay. NXT men's team is Ricky Saints, Trick Williams, Javon Evans, and Miles Bourne. Okay, I should have done this from the beginning. That looks like a great match. That looks like a tremendous match. I get the feeling NXT wins that one. It makes sense. Like if you're talking about it from a storytelling standpoint, of course, I'm going to look at getting heat. But I think they should end the night with Trick Williams standing over Mike Santana, and that's how they go off the air on NXT to preview Bound for Glory. I think that the biggest push for Bound for Glory pay-per-view buys and ticket sales is going to come from NXT Showdown. Right, we already got good ticket sales already, and I'm going to get into the ticket sales here in a little bit as I talk about the new matches for Bound for Glory. But I think that big push that we're going to get is going to come from that NXT show. So what I want is the final scene of Trick Williams standing over. It'd be nice if it was bloody, but they don't do that. But it's standing over Mike Santana, and then maybe you end it with like a big brawl. I think that would be good. But I think Trick has to pin Mike Santana one more time before we head into Bound for Glory. And it's shenanigans, of course. You know, like they got to cheat. Like heel should cheat to win, and Trick is a heel. So I'm into that, and the talent in it is insane. So if they let these guys cook, I know it's only a 2-hour TV show, but if they let these guys cook, like this could be a really fucking good match, man. I want to see a little preview of Javon Evans and Leon Slater. We saw a little bit of that during the tag team match on Tuesday when they were a team against the Cucking. What is that? What is the team called? The Cucking? Okay, the Culling. Sorry, the Culling. I was thinking about TNA's role in this whole thing, but but that was awesome. They're like a fucking dream team. So I'm like, you guys screwed up teaming those guys, by the way, because now that's all we want to see going forward. We want to see that as those guys as a tag team. They were perfect as a tag team. But yeah, I think Mike's. So it's an elimination match, so Survivor Series. Frankie, Moose, and Leon can get eliminated fairly easily. That's no big deal. You're looking at the men's team. I bet Ricky Saints and Trick Williams don't get pinned. I bet. Or if Ricky Saints gets eliminated, it'll be like old school, like a DQ type deal, or whoever he's feuding with like comes and takes him out. He like gets like a count out or something like that. I could see that. They're probably going to protect their champion. So, and then Trick Williams pins Mike Santana to close the show. And then we get to the women's team. Let's talk about the NXT team first. We got JC Jane, Jada Parker, Sol Ruka, and Lola Vice. That's a pretty good team. That's a green team, I would say. Pretty green. Like the men's team has, some decent experience. JC Jane, obviously, she's been around a while. She's the champion there. So, and then you get to the women's team. I'm not going to pull a Brian Alvarez on this deal. I just want you guys to know that I fucking agree with everything that Brian Alvarez says about this TNA women's team. Every bad thing that anybody has said about this team, I agree with, right? If you came here for solace and for comfort from me regarding the bullshit storytelling that they're doing for this team, as far as I'm concerned, like the storyline itself is fucking done. Like the creative purposes is dead. It's everybody jacking off now at this point. They fucked the whole thing up. Like it's been fucked up for a while. Like you had the NXT. It was Xia Brookside and Xia Li like invading NXT, but then taking happy pictures in front of the NXT logo. Like they're just happy to be there. So that sucks, right? But you don't see that on television, so it's not that big of a deal. But for this women's team, for Santino to pick Kalani Jordan, the NXT star who is the TNA Women's Champion, to be their team captain, it's asinine. It makes no sense. Literally nobody can argue that it's good. Like you can say, I think the match will be good, but that's different, right? Like there's a lot of really good matches out there that have bad stories. I'm just talking about this story. There's so many fucking plot holes in this whole thing. And I think this was the most egregious of them all. And it made it's like, you guys are telling me that you don't think I'm smart when you do that. And that's a typical WWE thing. Like they just throw it together and they just want you to like it. And they're just going to tell you that you have to like it over and over again. And then of course you got their bots and their fans are going to like say mean things about you if you try to point out the obvious plot holes. Like, yo, like what? I'm the fucking asshole now. Like they're the ones telling me I'm an idiot, right? They're the ones treating their fan base like they're stupid, but I'm a dick. Okay. So yeah, Kalani Jordan, Cassie Lee, Jessie McKay, and Mara Shade. Kalani Jordan announced Cassie Lee and Jessie McKay as the tag champions, but they had not won them yet. They do now. They have them, but they hadn't aired on television. And Mara Shade. And then so you got the obvious that this is a team full of one NXT star and 3 former NXT stars. So at least with the men's team, the only guy that's ever been in WWE was Frankie Kazarian, but it was so long ago and it was so short-lived. Like it was before the NXT days, and nobody other than people like me even remembers that. But these women were on. Well, actually, Cassie Lee and Jessie McKay have been off WWE television for 4 years. But they have not been on TNA television that long. Like they've only been in the company for a couple months. Same with Mara Shade. They came in the company, I want to say like a month or two before Mara did. Mara got here in what, July or early August, something like that. And then Cassie Lee and Jessie McKay were in the midsummer. And of course, Kalani Jordan doesn't even work there, right? So here's what I think they did. I think they had the script in a PDF or in a Word document, and they had this whole script that they were going to do. And when Ash by Elegance pulled out, they did a control F, right? They hit the control button F, which is fine. And they typed in Ash, right? And then it pops up every time the word Ash pops up. And then there is a function on there where you can say replace with. They clicked the replace with and they typed in Kalani Jordan. And they just slid her right into that spot. She's playing the entire role, slight variations, right? They tweaked it slightly. Because they have to try to make it make sense, but it makes no fucking sense. So there's that match. Okay. And then we also got, which I think is fairly interesting, we got Mustafa Ali is going to be taking on Ethan Page for the NXT North American Championship. Mustafa Ali cut a hell of a promo. A fantastic promo because he was actually scheduled to be challenging for the North American Championship. And then he ended up getting fired and they dropped the whole thing. Because, you know, he was a main roster star, but they had moved him back to NXT to kind of like revive him a little bit. But then they decided that they're going to go ahead and move on, which is what he had been asking for years. Like he had publicly asked for his release and then they waited until it was on their terms and they got rid of the guy. And now he's like 40 and he's in TNA. But they brought him back and he cut an amazing promo, a way better promo than he ever cut in WWE because when you're in TNA, you're underproduced, and that when you're a hard worker and you're super talented like a Mustafa Ali is, and he's got his character down. Some people are off put by the politicalization. What do they call it? politicization of he's a polarizing character. He's a fucking politician, right? Some people are off put by that. I'm not one of those people. I think this is a good heel, right? Especially in this time, like that's a hateable person, a slimy politician. There's nothing worse than a slimy politician, especially during a government shutdown. And so I look, I don't know that they're going to let these guys actually have a really good match. I think they could. Ethan Page is a fairly basic wrestler, but Mustafa Ali is a good heel. The problem is Ethan Page also heel. So that's weird. I think they're just throwing it together because of that built-in storyline. But if Ethan Page is a babyface, I think that dynamic would work a little bit better. But I do feel like Ethan Page is going to win it. And I think they just threw the match together because I don't see a world where the Hardys don't beat the Dark State for the NXT championships. I just don't see it. So they got to balance it out. So I think the men's team, NXT men's team is going to win that one. I think the TNA women take that because it's Kalani George. She's NXT. So and Brian Alvarez made that point. I'm like, that's actually a good point. That it's mostly NXT people anyway. So it's like the NXT team loses nothing. And then you get Ethan Page can beat Mustafa Ali, which is fine. And then you get the Hardys winning the NXT Tag Championships. Hardys are WWE legends, so like no one's gonna look at that and think that TNA beat them, right? No one's gonna think about that. So it balances out, and nobody looks bad in the end. And then you get the unprecedented moment where you have a TNA contracted tag team or TNA contracted act winning a WWE title, which no other smaller partner in WWE history has ever won one of their titles. We established that on Sunday that like that had just never happened. Other than I think like some titles that were created to be held in Japan back in the 80s, like Antonio Inoki had the World Martial Arts Championship, and then the Junior Heavyweight Championship, but those were only defended in Japan and they would be brought over to the States rarely. But yeah, so NXT Showdown, I'm going head to head with Title Tuesday. So far, they have one title match. AEW Dynamite Title Tuesday, they have one title match, and it's Mercedes Moné versus Florida Woman. I don't know who Florida Woman is, but that's what they got. But I'm gonna be mainly watching obviously NXT Showdown because of the TNA connections. I'm a TNA podcaster, so that makes sense. I'm gonna try to keep up with Dynamite as much as I can. But I may end up going live that night. So stay tuned, everybody. Stay tuned. I may go live. We shall see if that actually happens. But looking like a big show. I get the feeling that NXT is going to beat AEW fairly handily. And when they do, I will be doing a video. And in the title of that video will be TNA and NXT defeat AEW Dynamite head-to-head ratings. That'll be the title. I'm not going to talk about Max. I'm not going to talk about anything else. I am going to purposely gaslight people. And I might even put a Tony Khan dumb face on the thumbnail. That might be the strategy. And it might be a record-breaking video for me. I think that would be cool. That might be like a $7 video. That'd be good. I could use $7. But yeah, so that will be happening on like if I go, I'll be going live next Thursday, and if that does happen, just be prepared for the meltdown that's going to occur when I do that. I'm going to be in a lot of trouble with a lot of people, I'm sure. But just so everybody knows, just so we're clear, that's what's happening. All right, let's see. I got BFG matches and tickets. I will be talking. Yeah, let's do the new brace for Impact, the new Bound for Glory matches that we have. It was announced earlier this week. Steve Macklin announced it that he will be taking on Frankie Kazarian in a rematch for the international title. Io or Dobby, if you're still there, did they announce that there was a rematch for the Inspiration versus Elegance brand? I'm not too sure. I had that on my notes, but I don't think that that's actually true. So I am curious about that. I don't know about that one, but I did have that as a note, and I don't know why. I don't know why I have that as a note. So we got Trick Williams and Mike Santana, Kalani Jordan, Indy Hartwell. One last table, Hardys versus Team 3D. Tessa versus Gia Miller. So this is going to be Gia Miller's main TNA in-ring debut. I think she's wrestled on those stupid throwback throwdowns where she was showing like her entire butt. Like when she was dating Ace Austin and she'd come out wearing leather and like S&M type of deal, and Ace Austin was a punk rocker. I think she wrestled at that point, but she's had some indie matches, but she doesn't have a lot. Tessa's going to have her working boots on, hopefully. Hopefully she doesn't do to Gia what she did to Indy Hartwell and try to have a 5-star match doing 5-star moves, because that's just not going to work with Gia. Gia doesn't have the capacity to be able to do something like that. So keep it simple, stupid, is what I would say to everybody involved. Hardcore War or Hardcore Bore, the System versus Order 4. So there you go. Call Your Shot Gauntlet with Mance Warner coming in at number 20, and I think Lei Ying Lee coming in at number 1. Leon Slater versus Javon Evans for the X Division Championship. And of course, we got Frankie Kazarian versus Steve Macklin. I get the feeling we're going to have Mid Cardona versus Ryan Nemeth. Hometown Man might be involved at some point, but I don't think they're going to do a tag team match on that deal. That doesn't make any sense to me. And if I'm missing any matches, please correct me. But I think that's all we got. So we did get some new matches for Bound for Glory. At least one new match. It was Tessa Blanchard versus Gia Miller. Bound for Glory ticket sales. WrestleTix is reporting that they're up to 4,500 tickets out for Bound for Glory, where they set up a 5,290. So, and that was they got 772 left on the table. I think they're going to increase the capacity. I'm pretty sure they'll be increasing it throughout the week. That's kind of what they've been doing. That is their MO. And I get the feeling that they'll be over 6,000 at some point, which is, 5,000 is a win. Actually 4,500 is a win for TNA. Right. I'm guaranteeing that they're going to get to 5, and they would probably get to that 5,290 if they left it at that, because they're going to have that big push from NXT on Tuesday, and they're hitting the ground. They're marketing. They're doing a great job. I get the feeling they'll be up over 6 at some point. I'm not too sure about the over 7. I don't know about that one. That's going to be tough. So, but I'm not like bullish on them not getting that like I was for Slammiversary. So, yeah, there's a 384 ticket increase since the last update. This is from WrestleTix. Represents strong momentum up from August figures of 3. So back in August, they had 3,000 sold out of 40 or 4,093 available. So, the crossover is huge. The NXT promotion is huge. We got a lot going on for this Bound for Glory, but the main driver of the ticket sales is obviously the NXT stuff. But, before any of that NXT stuff was announced, Team 3D and the Hardys one final table was like, I think that like the first 3,000 was those guys. I think we could say that. I don't think that's out of line. Hardys are still a draw, right? They might not be able to get, 5, but I would say like the first 3 were those guys. Was them and the Dudley Boys. Despite the fact that the Dudley Boys are just 2 old men making balloon animals for kids now. A couple of clowns, those guys. A couple of pussies, as I said last week. Which I am now blocked by Bully Ray. Thank you, Godella, for tagging Bully Ray on my post where I called the Dudley Boys pussies. Which was me talking about their characters and not the actual people, but the actual people are now mad at old me because I got snitched on by my friend. Goddamn. Godella. In other news, hold on. Let me get to the chat. Okay. So they did not announce the Inspiration Tag Title match, but they haven't yet. Maybe next week, so we'll see. Dobby says, I think the Nemesis Cardona Honky Tonk Man or Hometown Man will end up being a story told in the Gauntlet. Okay, I can see that. Yeah, because they need names in that Gauntlet. That does make sense because there's already like a lot of matches, so they need people in that Gauntlet. All right, Dobby. Dobby, can you do me a favor? So Dobby's saying they're going to outdraw Wrestle Dream. That's less than a week later. Wrestle Dream's in St. Louis, so a little bit different, but it's a week apart. Different cities. One's in Lowell, which is a smaller city actually than St. Louis. Boston's a bigger city than St. Louis. It's a suburb of Boston. I get it. It's like 45 minutes away. Hour, if you're in Russia. Actually, I think when I flew in last year, actually it was 2 years ago when I flew into Boston. I think it took me almost 2 hours to get to Lowell, but traffic was like dog shit. But yes, so the TNA's October pay-per-view will have sold more than AEW's October pay-per-view. You guys can use that information however you like. But that will happen. The funny thing is, too, the TNA pay-per-views are consistently selling more ticks than NXT PLEs do. That is a fact. That is a 100% fact. It is weird, like this TNA resurgence. I think TNA just has a really good ground game right now as far as their marketing goes. They're putting a lot of effort into it. Let's see. That's the strangest part. It helps it, but it also outdraws the actual NXT events. That's true. I think that is a great point. Wrestle Dream currently under 4K, and Wrestle Dream's only set up for a little over 4K. So they're not even trying to compete with Bound for Glory. St. Louis, kind of a weak wrestling town, but the people that go are like usually really into it. So I think that's the draw to go to St. Louis. Terrence Sullivan in the house. What's up, my friend? How are you, sir? All right. Impact Eddie, the match of the night for Bound for Glory is going to be Evans versus Slater. That's probably going to be the match of the year for TNA. And I think we just saw a match of the year candidate between Myron Reed and Leon Slater, but I get the feeling this one will surpass it. I think the heat will be off the charts. Javon Evans is a very popular character. He has been on SmackDown lately. He wrestled Sami Zayn last week. I think he's going to be on SmackDown tonight. I did see that he was backstage. I don't know if he's actually going to appear, but he has been on. All right, let's get to some more news, and then I'm going to do a quick recap of the episode, and then we're going to call it a night, let everybody get back to their weekend. Tessa Blanchard has announced her return to CMLL. Okay, TNA star Tessa Blanchard revealed her return to CMLL during an appearance on Informa this week, confirming a match at Arena Mexico on October 10th. Blanchard's TNA contract allows for international bookings, enabling this comeback to the Mexican promotion where she has history. No opponent has been named yet, but the announcement has generated buzz, with CMLL teasing her as El Diamante, the undeniable diamond. I was not about to pronounce another word. The move expands Blanchard's global presence and her amid her TNA feuds, and she's got a big match with Gia Miller coming up. Okay, so she went to CMLL after, so she got she'd been shit canned by WWE at one point during the Mae Young Classic. She got shit canned by TNA after she went to Mexico and refused to bring the belt back. And she went to, after that, she did Women of Wrestling, got fired from there, went to CMLL, and according to Lucha Blog, and more on him in a little bit, but according to Lucha Blog, was very good there, and the people really like her, and they did not want her to leave. So she went there in like 2023 and had a good year, and then ended up going to TNA, but she always wanted to work both. That was her plan, but CMLL moved on from her. Now, this, again, I just read Lucha Blog earlier today, a Cubs fan, and he said that it was kind of a preemptive strike by CMLL because they assumed that Tessa, after spending some time in TNA, would eventually make her way back to the WWE. But it does not appear that that's going to be the case. I don't think that Tessa is going back to WWE. WWE appears not to be interested in her. She has at no point taken any part of this invasion angle or the Showdown angle. She has not played a role whatsoever. And CMLL feels more comfortable bringing her back now at that point. Now, you got to remember, what's the context? The context is WWE signed Stephanie McCurr right off their roster because they just don't really have like these like ironclad contracts. I guess I don't really understand the how they do their business there, but I think maybe like they had a contract, but like it's WWE, you can just go, right? And they didn't want that to happen to them with Tessa, so they just let her go. That way, they weren't being caught off guard, right? Because that's what happened with Stephanie McCurr. I think they were probably caught off guard a little bit. So yeah, Tessa is back in CMLL. A lot of fans are in an uproar about it, and I'm elated because you got a lot of self-righteous AEW fans that like once AEW and CMLL became partners, AEW fans are now CMLL fans. They're very self-righteous, and people that got some dirt on them, like especially racist comments like Tessa's got, like they were like dogging TNA for bringing her back, despite the fact she had just been in CMLL, their favorite new promotion. But they were dogging TNA for bringing her back. Well, now she's back in CMLL. I'm curious if they're going to boycott it the way that they said that they would boycott TNA. I don't get the feeling they will, because a lot of these people are morally flexible and only talk a good game and don't really act on it. So we shall see, but I'm just very interested in that. I love stuff like that. These morally flexible, sanctimonious, mostly white people. If they're going to boycott CMLL because Tessa Blanchard's on there, I highly doubt that's the case. But that is curious. So with that, in Lucha Blog, in Cubs fans article that he wrote, he called me out. he talked about me for some reason. Like he and I do not know each other. Okay, you know what? He just DM'd me back. Okay, so I DM'd him. So he and I don't know each other. I don't know how he picked up on me talking about TNA at the PC. So I talked about it on Patreon. Joe Lanza, I was on his show reviewing Victory Road. He said I may have brought it up during that, but I don't remember like me reporting that. I don't think I ever reported that, but he said in his blog that I reported that that TNA would be running the PC after Bound for Glory. And then he said in his like Mike Gilbert reported this, so that would be a good time for WWE to gauge whether or not their audience would be accepting of Tessa, which is a good point. I think that's a valid point. The problem is I just never reported that. So I sent him a DM earlier tonight, and he literally just got back to me. So I just checked it right now. So he's going to update that. So I'm no longer in his article. So because Sean Ross Sapp speculated that on Fightful Select. That's where I got the idea, right? And I'm looking at the calendar, and I just kind of put it together, and then I heard from another media guy, and they said that they think that that's happening, but at no point did I ever say like that's definitively happening. I did not do that. And you guys have been on this ride with like you've been hearing everything I've been saying. I've never said that. So I don't know if somebody told him that or he just like heard me talk about it and thought that I was reporting that, but I'm more like, hey, look, this is what I saw in Fightful Select. I reached out to another media member. I'm looking at the schedule, and right now there's nothing on the schedule between Bound for Glory and November 13th at Full Sail. There is, so either they're going dark or they're running a show where they don't need to sell tickets, which the PC would make sense, right? Unless they're going to go to Nashville at Skyway Studios, which I guess could be possible. They've done that before. It is very possible that they just whatever booking they had fell through, and now they have to scramble and they're gonna run Skyway. But like I don't know, Sean Rossett brought it up in Fightful Select, and in his article made it seem like that like he thinks that's where they're going. Talked to another guy that's really plugged in with NXT. He thinks that's where they're going. And then I reached out to BQ and I was like, hey, are they running the PC or are they going dark? And he said they're being tight-lipped on where they're running, but he said that they're not going dark. Okay, so I'm just putting it all together at this point. It's like PC makes the most sense to me. So I'm not reporting that. I'm just saying that that's what makes the most sense to me. And I think that's the most interesting. And if they run the PC and they get to use WWE's equipment, then it'll at least be in high def, which would be nice for a change. It would be very nice. So we shall see what that even looks like. I don't know if it's going to be they're gonna do a month of tapings over a 2-night period like they typically would do, or if they're gonna go live every Thursday as they're testing out their capability to go live before a television deal would kick in 2026 if they can do it every single week. Like, hey, how much would it cost? Do we have to who do we have to fly in versus versus like who's local to Orlando, like that type of stuff. If they're going to work out the kinks and they're going to leverage their partnership with NXT to be able to do that. So I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. But I do think that PC is on the table for sure. So another question that I asked BQ to look into, because he's got legit contacts within TNA, was the issue with Moose and Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. I said, hey, is it true that Moose was told he couldn't go to Maple Leaf Pro? And this is all in BQ's latest mailbag. Moose told a podcast that he was not allowed to go to Maple Leaf Pro, that he was denied going there because of their usage of AEW talent. Everybody and their mother that works in TNA publicly denied it. Dave Meltzer then checked with his sources, and his sources said that his story was true. As usual, this truth is probably somewhere in the middle. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. I don't really want to get too much into it. I don't think it's that interesting of a story, but it's something that I did have him look into. And the people that he talks to would be in the know and would know this situation inside and out. And they definitively, and this is not Carlos Silva and Tommy Dreamer, like public faces. Like, these are backstage people that are really plugged into what's going on in TNA. Like they work there, like, you know what I mean? Like they have some stroke and would know these issues. And they definitively told BQ that was not the case. And BQ even went so far as to say what he heard back was that that they don't know why Moose would say that, and maybe he thought that there was probably more of a scheduling conflict, but a lot of the wrestlers that are there now don't have a connection to Scott D'Amore. Scott D'Amore's been gone for a couple of years. There's been a lot of roster turnover, and there is still heat there between TNA and Scott D'Amore, and so it's very likely that a lot of people, they don't want to put heat on Scott. They don't want to put heat on TNA, so they put heat on AEW. Who knows? Like, that's me speculating. I don't know. But BQ is saying that, like, that was like 100% no. Nobody was ever told that. That is possible. It's also possible that people that told Dave Meltzer that they couldn't go because of AEW, that's what they thought. Like, they probably believed that, but they were never told that. Like, they just, like, for whatever reason, they didn't get clearance to go to the show for whatever reason. And it could have been as simple as a scheduling issue. And they thought, well, it must be this because Harley Cameron's working the show, or it must be this because pick a name that works the show. Who's Cody's friend? What the fuck is his name? I can't remember. Like, he was the guy that wore the Sopranos outfits, and God, what's his name? Oh God. I'm going to look like an idiot. Okay. That guy's name. Like, he's been with AEW forever, but very, like, he's like an enhancement guy, but he works a lot of Maple Leaf Pro shows. So it very well could have been that. So doesn't really matter on the grand scheme of things, but so that's all that was. So no big deal there. No big issue there. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into this TNA Impact review. I got about 10 to 15 minutes left. Let me get to your chats before I do. QT Marshall, thank you. Very memorable guy, QT Marshall. My memory is shot. I'm so tired. Okay, Terrence Sullivan, what do you think the attendance for BFG? I say 6,000. I think 6,000 sounds good to me. Like, I always like shoot low, lowered expectations is been my motto with TNA for the longest time. I think when you have lowered expectations with TNA, like, you're doing good. But I think 6,000 sounds like a good round number. Tactical Playmaker, out of topic, but should TNA land on CW? Will it outdraw Collision? And will it be within touching distance of Dynamite? That is a good question. I do think that it would outdraw Collision. There are several episodes of Collision that are doing well under 300,000. I think that they've done under 200,000 before. That's a tough, especially during football season. Collision's on a tough night, Saturday night, going head to head with a lot of big football games, college football games. So I know NFL does better ratings than college football, but college football is still a monster. And especially when you get two powerhouse college teams, and they're like the people in the major cities will still watch those, but the people in those outlying cities, those rural towns, right? Because there's a lot of these colleges are in rural cities, right? They're not in they're not in New York City. They're not in these major markets. They're in these smaller markets. They've just been embedded into the culture of America. And so you'll get these smaller towns like watching this shit. So, and a lot of rural small town America loves pro wrestling, and they have to choose like which one do I want to watch live, which one do I want to watch on demand, and most of the time they're going to pick football if it's a game that interests them. And so Collision is always going to have that issue. And so I think it's very conceivable that TNA on a Thursday night could beat the Collision number that happens on Saturday should Collision have a really bad night, right? I think and honestly, I think probably a lot of the time TNA would beat them because if they were on CW is just a better network, right? Better network and it's a better time slot. Now, when TNA is going head to head with NFL, that's also tough, right? But NFL's on Prime, and if it's a bad matchup, maybe it wouldn't affect them too much. But we saw whenever we used to get the numbers for TNA on Thursday nights, NFL did affect them quite a bit. So, but I would say now, within touching distance of Dynamite, I would say within touching distance, yeah. I think more often than not, Dynamite would beat them, but occasionally Dynamite tanks. Occasionally they tank. So I think that there could be one of those nights where Dynamite's just having an off night, or there's a significant event happening, like whether it be a baseball game or a very interesting basketball game or something in the news that really affects Dynamite. But on Thursday night, like TNA doesn't have anything going on, or not TNA, but like there's nothing going on Thursday, and like TNA has the smaller competition. They're on the better network that gets a lot more coverage. I could see them beating them on some anomalous nights, but I would say Dynamite would probably beat them more often than not. But that's a good question. Terrence said, what's good corporate, Mike? Yeah, I'm corporate America now. Dobby says, Evans and Phoenix just beat the Garzas on SmackDown. So there you go. I was right. Terrence, I believe Gia pins Tessa and Tessa goes bye. You know what? I don't think you're way off, Terrence, there. I don't think Tessa's return has been good. She brings she might even be like not having any behavioral issues, although I would watch that indie match again and be like that tells me that Tessa's still full of herself, right? The way she handled that match is like a tantrum. I would say at this point, she's not bringing in any new eyeballs. She's not selling extra tickets, and there's people out there that won't work with her. So why is she still around? That would be my thing. But they're also making a documentary about her, according to BQ. Oh, that was the other thing that I asked BQ. Okay. So I reached out to BQ and for his mailbag and said, hey, I heard that WWE would be taking some control over what happens backstage at TNA. That was a rumor that I heard. I wasn't reporting that. At no point did I ever report that. I just asked BQ to look into it. And BQ came back with an emphatic no. They're not taking over. And I really wanted him to look into the more production side, because I was like, I'm just like reading the tea leaves. They're live on CW, maybe running the PC. Would WWE be taking control over production at some point? And he said, absolutely not. They're going to remain autonomous. I think Carlos Silva hammered that home this week too. He said, talking about the autonomy of the company and of the show. Okay, so that makes sense to me. And he did say that they're bringing in some new production people with high-level television experience. Unfortunately, we've all heard that before. We heard that when they went dark for a few months and they come back and they had yellow ropes and a new logo and a piss yellow filter still. So, but I do think that the show would just naturally look better if it's on a better network like a CW. The closer that TV show looks to NXT, I think the better, for sure. Tessa representing both brands, good for her. Yep. Ariel Schnerer brought Tessa in, and he is no longer in TNA. I have a feeling the current TNA manager don't see her as a top priority. I could be wrong, of course. I don't think you're wrong. Tessa, to her credit, has done an excellent job since returning. I think she had the match with Jordan Grace, was really good, but they botched the finish. I thought that she had a pretty good match with Masha Slamovich, but didn't have a ton of heat. And then I think the she's a racist chance they haven't been able to get completely away from, and they hold her off from wrestling on live television because of it. Because people want to take over the show. So that's an issue. All right, let me get through this Impact review. I need to get 8 minutes out of this deal. All right. I thought last night's Impact was pretty good, actually. I thought they had a lot of energy. There was over 2,000 people in the arena. In fact, I think the final number for the TV taping in Edmonton was like 2,030. And which is really good for a TV taping. The previous night at Victory Road, they had 2,700, so they dropped. But back-to-back nights, it's a television taping. I get it. But 2,000 for a TV taping for TNA is pretty damn good. So all things considered, right? So Santino greeted Mike Santana outside the host venue, and Santino said the TNA management has forbidden Santana and Trick Williams from physical contact outside of a sanctioned match. Santana asked, what is he supposed to do if Trick puts his hand on him? Santino said he wouldn't blame Santana, but he doesn't want their Bound for Glory match jeopardized. And he goes, I got it. That, my friends, is called foreshadowing, by the way, just in case you didn't know. All right, so we get Frankie Kazarian. He's coming out for the King's speech. If you thought this Invasion Showdown, the feud between NXT and TNA was dumb before, they made it even dumber with this King's speech thing. Now, I'm going to complain about the creative here because there's so many plot holes. But what I will say is I thought the performances for the most part were pretty good. And the crowd was really into it. But the plot holes are just asinine here. So Kazarian brings out Kalani Jordan, right? And he's like kind of berating her a little bit. And then he brings out Trick Williams. He calls out Trick Williams. Trick Williams shows up because he's saying that he could beat Trick Williams. Which I'm just like, so they're both heels, but I get it. Okay, so one side versus the other. So he's talking crap to them. He said Kazarian said the only reason Trick is champion is because he beat the buffoon Joe Hendry. Kazarian said Trick would not have beaten him had he been champion. Whoop that Trick. So Trick comes out, babyface reaction. They're chanting NXT. They're chanting whoop that Trick. Okay. Trick said that if Kazarian calls himself a king, that makes him Tricky the Emperor. Kazarian took offense, but Trick said Kazarian is a second-rate champion and a second-rate business. I'm pretty sure he's talking about TNA, full of second-rate talent. He said this Lord told him that Mike Santana touches him without provocation, again, foreshadowing. Their TNA championship match at Bound for Glory would be called off. Trick said he's the reason TNA is on fire, which Kazarian took issue with. Trick said it's not because of Santana, Leon Slater, or the Hardys, which naturally brought out Matt Hardy. Hardy walked onto the stage while fans chanted his last name, and Matt said they seem to have some self-esteem issues. Hardy said that he seemed like the NXT wrestlers were burying the TNA wrestlers to make themselves feel better. Hardy credited TNA being on fire to Santana, Slater himself, and his brother. No mention of Hendry. Hardy said TNA is just like him, he will not die. Kazarian asked where his brother was. So now Kazarian is like taking up for Trick. Keep in mind, at TNA Showdown, Kazarian and Trick are going to be on opposite sides. This makes no sense. Makes no sense whatsoever. Kazarian asked Hardy where his brother was. Oh, that's right. He's not allowed in this country. And then Kazarian said he's jealous of Jeff Hardy because he wishes he wasn't allowed in this dump of a country, of Canada, of course, which I thought was funny. Leon Slater came and joined Matt. And then, of course, Indy Hartwell made her entrance because Jordan's catchphrase is no one can do it like Lonnie. I'm going to say that again. Her entire catchphrase, her money-making catchphrase is no one can do it like Lonnie. We need a little work there, Lonnie. That is not very interesting of a catchphrase. Taz used to say, beat me if I can, survive if I let you. You're saying no one's like Lonnie? Do we want to be like Lonnie? I know you're the champion, but you're about to lose to Andy Hartwell. So, all right. So, of course, all these, this thing just went on fucking forever. It's a long talking segment, and we got to a 6-person tag. So, there you go. But look, it wasn't bad, but the plot holes are there. So now we're going to get Kalani Jordan, Frankie Kazarian, and Trick Williams, right? Kalani Jordan is on Team NXT for the women. That doesn't make any sense. Kazarian's on the TNA, or Kalani Jordan's on the TNA women's match. She's the captain of the TNA women for Showdown. Frankie Kazarian is on the TNA men's roster in that match, and Trick Williams is on the NXT. But now they're teaming against TNA people. It's so stupid. All right, so Trick, Kalani, and Frankie, they team up. And the baby faces, of course, won. Trick Williams bumped into Mike Santana. Mike Santana beat him up. Kazarian went back inside the ring, and he got the Swanton 450 from Leon Slater for the 3 count. So a lot of the people were into the match though. But I think they're into NXT, they're into Trick, and they're just into everybody. And afterwards, there's a big TNA chant. So we got Tummy Dreamer, Tum Tum himself, who does these long, drawn-out promos, these very emotional promos, stood on the stage with Carlos Silva and several TNA wrestlers, and he spoke about competing with NXT on Showdown. And they fired up. They chanted TNA. Dreamer says he knows if they're in. He says he knows they are NXT, but we are a family. At one point, they cut off something that he said. He must have been cussing. Dreamer removed his jacket to show off a TNA shirt. Dreamer, keep your fucking clothes on, dude. For the love of God, keep your clothes on, please. Dreamer said that they would take NXT to this stream and kick NXT's ass. So we'll see that. But yeah, I don't know. Jason Powell has a good point. Dreamer has always been a good promo, but I'm not a fan of him making him the voice of the company. Mike Santana has been positioned as the locker room leader, so it would have been better coming from him. That is a great point. That is a fantastic point. Mike Santana should have been the one to give the speech, and honestly, he probably would have given a better speech. If you want to have Tommy Dreamer in the background for that, he's an executive there. He's a well-known, loved guy. Everybody loves Tommy. Me too. I'm an old ECW guy, so of course I love Tommy. I'm critical of him now because he's in a position of power, but it comes with the territory. But Mike Santana should have been in that segment. Okay. We had a really good Mara Shade vignette. She talked about getting into wrestling because she watched Total Divas. Now, she's 4 years into her career. She's had a bunch of injuries. She got fired from her dream job, but she said that was just the light at the end of the tunnel. She's in NXT now, so there you go. And then they previewed NXT Showdown, of course. So there you go. Then we got Angel Warriors. Zaya Brookside and Lei Ying Lee defeat Kat Von Hees. Is she supposed to be Kat Von D? And Ava Lawless. So there you go. Little squash match. But I like the Angel Warriors. I wonder if we're gonna get the Aztec Warriors and maybe they'll fight. That'd be stupid. So Joe Hendry was delivering a promo from a stairwell about how he beat Eric Young at Victory Road, and the Santino said, for whatever reason, Anthem is forcing Joe Hendry to wrestle Eric Young in an ODQ match. And Santino was like putting the heat on the execs, but it's like, you're in charge. Okay. So he goes to Carlos, I guess. I don't know. And then a really cool Mike Santana video package aired. And Mike Santana was sitting in a chair, and Amazing Red was walking behind him. And Amazing Red was kind of being a dick, talking about how big of a failure he is. But it was good. Just talking about how disappointed him and Spanish announce team and Homicide were, how they're disappointed, and he let them all down. I was like, God damn, that's tough. But I thought it was really good. I thought it was fantastic. And I thought Amazing Red was really good. So good, in fact. I hope that he comes out to the ring with Amazing Red. We need more Amazing Red on television in 2025. I know he's like in his early 40s and he battled some injuries, but he's still like a pretty young guy. And, back in the early days of the X Division, Amazing Red was that dude. Like, he was legit. And it sucks that he got hurt, but he was fucking fantastic. him and AJ and Loki and Jerry Lynn and those guys. They ruled. Frankie, for sure. Chris Sabin. Hell yeah. That was an awesome crew. Chat, I will get to you guys in a little bit. I promise I will be getting to you guys. All right. Let's see here. Nick Nemeth versus Hometown Man. Nick Nemeth got the victory there. Afterwards, Matt Cardona ran out and tried to help Hometown Man, but the Nemeths got the better of him. So I'm curious if they're going to go back to a tag match, which I hope they don't, or like Dobby said, that this is going to be a part. The angle is going to be a part of the gauntlet match. We'll see. Gia Miller promo aired. Can I say Gia Miller might be the best promo in the whole company? I think she's like right up there with Santana. Definitely better than Tommy. She said she was attacked by Tessa. Tessa's a dick. And then she challenged Tessa to face it Bound for Glory. And then, of course, Tessa accepted. So she said she's going to know who. Yeah. So Miller said it's not about winning or losing. It's about beating Tessa within an inch of her life so that she knows who Gia Miller really is. I wonder if Gia Miller just starts wrestling from now on. And then they bring back Gabby Laspiza to be the backstage interviewer. I thought Gabby did a pretty good job. All right, Tasha Steelz versus Alicia Edwards. This wasn't any good. Lots of interference. Referee was terrible. But Alicia Edwards hit it over the kendo stick and a pedigree for the win. So there you go. After the match, Steelz hit Alicia from behind. Alicia rolled on top of Steelz, threw some punches. System members stood in the ring while Order 4 was on the floor. So there you go. Tessa Blanchard delivered a promo with Victoria Crawford stood by. Tessa said Tessa said that she trained at high spots under George South. Gia Miller wanted to be trained by South because she idolized her, but then Gia Miller left the school and went and got trained by a J word in Mike Jackson. You know, Tessa shouldn't be using slurs, like Tessa of all people. She called Mike Jackson the J word, which I got in trouble for. Jobber. Like, she shouldn't be saying that on television because apparently, like, according to fucking dipshit Chelsea Green, that is a bad word. Like, that's a slur, according to Chelsea and Mid Cardona. Dumb. But anyway, so they're going to fight. All right, Elegance. So we'll go to the main event. Elegance brand, Heather and M. We'll call her Maggie. Can we just call her Maggie? Like, why do it like M? No. Call it just Maggie. That's fine. Or give her a different name, but don't go M. The Elegance brand versus the Inspiration, Cassie Lee and Jessie McKay. And I gotta say, the crowd, he was there for it. The crowd was there for it. They wanted the title change. I think Heather and Maggie are a really good tag team. And I think Inspiration are a good act. This was the first time that I found the Inspiration to actually be over with the audience. They had a decent knockouts tag match. It was the main event and the crowd was there for it. I got no complaints. I thought it was a good way to end the show. And I am disappointed because I hope that we are not going to break up Heather and Maggie, because I think Heather and Maggie are a really good tag team. Now, as you guys can tell, they're already building up the Angel Warriors. I don't want them to break up Heather and Maggie. That is their ammo. You have the tag titles for a while. You lose it to a new tag team, and then your tag team breaks up. I hope they keep the Elegance brand together. I think George Iceman is a good act. I like him with those girls. I think they can keep it alive. Nobody knows what's going on with Ash, and we all hope she's okay, but she may never come back. We don't know. But I think the gimmick works. I think it's a good gimmick. So, but all right, guys, there you go. Let me get to the chat here. All right. Hold on. I'm scrolling up. Okay. Online man, WWE wanted TNA's women's team to be mostly WWE so that when they win, it's basically WWE team winning. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Alter the Squirrels. Last night I quote retweeted a TNA clip and suggested they book Hometown Man versus Nick Nemeth, Mask versus Hair, and Hometown Man liked and retweeted it. So now I'm slightly worried. That's your fucking fault if it happens. You might actually be suspended from the show, Squirrel, if that happens. All right. AW Righteous fans will go nuts listening to Mike right now. Yeah, they don't like me too much. Let's see. Tessa versus Lei Ying Lee was fun. Yes, that was a really good match for sure. Thank you guys for reminding me of that match. That actually was probably Tessa's best match since being back with the company. TNA should hit Vancouver. Let's see. Tummy Dreamer still thinks it's 1999. Good to see Amazing Red. Amazing Red with the rub. With the rub some dirt on it promo to get it done was fantastic. Yeah, I thought Amazing Red was awesome. Jobber, so Hammeregger is no longer able to be used. So I think Hammeregger is not a slur. Like you can get around it, but Jobber apparently, according to Chelsea, is a slur. Glad the inspiration earned this reign. They let the inspiration earn the reign. So I mean, when they signed them, we all knew where this was going. But yes, I'm glad they didn't win on the first night like they did the last time they were in the company. I think they're a good act. They're a good act for TNA. I just think that the Elegance band is better at this point. And I like the Angel Warriors, but I also like Harley Hudson and Myla Grace, and I'd like to see them get on television. We need some, fresh young blood. And those like inspiration kind of it's a WWE act, that was over at one point. They seemed over this week, but since they've been back, they have not been over. They've just been bland. So, and then everybody agrees, keep the Elegance brand together. Maybe we need to make t-shirts for that. But I do like the Elegance brand. I like George Iceman. I like the whole act. I think they do a great job. Okay, guys, that is going to do it for me this week on Brace for Impact. And until next time, mahalo.